Hey, welcome to the Dude Real Estate channel. I'm your host, Nate Shields. Today we're going to be talking about my biggest regrets in real estate investing. So let's just dive right in. I've got 5 regrets and then actually one big regret that I'll get to a little bit later. So let's find out what I regret. All right, so my number one regret is not following my gut. Sometimes you need to listen to what's inside. Listen to your gut because it's telling you something that's wrong. And a lot of people, I think, have lost the ability to understand how to use your intuition, how to trust your gut in certain scenarios. And like any muscle or anything else, it takes some practice. And I'm not great at this, obviously, because this is one of my regrets, but at least I can go back and learn from it. I can pinpoint that I should have listened to my gut. It was telling me something to be aware of. Now, in this particular case, we'll talk about the last deal. I will link to it up here or up here, wherever it shows up. This deal seemed good at the time, but in retrospect, I should not have done it. Now, I did make some money on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do a deal. So I just had this feeling that I shouldn't do the deal, and I think the feeling was because it was outside of my typical criteria. Maybe if I would have stayed with my typical criteria, this would not have even come up. But I think I was a little desperate for a deal at the time. I wanted to do a flip, wanted to make something happen, wanted to make some money, and figured it would be good enough. But good enough is not enough reason to do a deal. Now, the reason I probably shouldn't have done this deal is because this particular property was a much higher price range than my normal price point. I like to buy things between, say $100,000 and $200,000 with an ARV of no more than $250,000. This one was a purchase of $260,000 as is with a potential ARV of around $335,000. So much higher price point, and it was in a neighborhood with thousands of similar houses. Very much a tract built community, lots of similar floor plans, stuff like that. If there was any kind of downturn in the market, or if there was all of a sudden a flood of listings, I would have been in real trouble. Luckily, it was a seller's market. It continued to be a seller's market, but I still had to make some concessions and come down on price to get the deal sold. All right, regret number 2, which is actually very similar to the first one, but it's not as much following my gut as it is doing deals I shouldn't have done because I wasn't paying attention to the numbers and my checklist as much as I should have. Again, I was probably just really wanting to do a deal. I was desperate to make some money maybe. And I saw this one and it seemed good, but I didn't do my due diligence and it hurt me in the end. So this particular deal was a condo, a townhouse style condo. The guy owned it outright. He owed some back taxes. We settled on what I thought was a pretty good deal, and I think it was if I had calculated the rehab costs correctly. But I was very lax on my due diligence with this one, and we ended up blowing that budget up way too much and only made a few $1,000s on it. So it was definitely not worth the risk or the time in this circumstance. In fact, I thought we were just going to have to clean the place up a little bit, do a few things here and there. I think my budget was like $7,500 or something like that. But then it got out of control because then we had to add new appliances. We ended up having to paint the entire place. We had to recarpet the entire place. So all these things just added up and kind of blew that budget out of the water. My number 3 regret, not setting up a process for consistent deal flow. You may have heard the term pipeline before. When it comes to sales or having something in the pipeline, you want to have things that are coming down your way so that you know when your next deal is going to happen. A lot of my investing career, as far as the flips went anyway, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. If I wanted to find a deal, I would go find a deal, or something would just come to me. And those were great, but you can't count on stuff just coming to you, and you can't count on just going to look at a couple properties that are on the MLS and making them into a deal. So what do I mean by deal flow? There are ways that you can set up processes to make sure that you have a significant flow of deals coming your way. For a time, I did have something set up. I had a website set up that brought leads to me, and 3 of my flips actually did come from that website. It wasn't very consistent. I set it up, I did have some Google AdWords running to it, and I was getting some leads, but then I stopped paying Google AdWords. I was still getting some leads, but not as many, and therefore not as many deals from that either. If you really want to think about real estate investing as a business, you need to have a consistent deal flow so that you know that another deal is coming. And that way too, you don't get stuck on maybe a bad deal in the middle of the road there, where it's like if that's your only thing, maybe you go do it, but then it ends up being break even or worse. So it's important to have that deal flow because you know that something else is coming down the line. So there are many ways to do this. You could have a website. You could be doing direct mail campaigns using like listsource and yellow letters. You could just have a great network of people that you work with, whether it's lenders, realtors, other investors. Maybe you just drive for dollars and you contact those property owners. There are many ways to do this. It could be even as simple as talking to a real estate agent and having them set you up with an email drip from the MLS according to your criteria. So there are a lot of different ways to help you get that predictive deal flow. You just need to set up those processes and be consistent with it. All right, regret number 4, partnerships that didn't quite work out. So luckily I do have a really good partnership with my partner that we do long-term rentals with. And the reason that that partnership has worked out so well is because we've been aligned in a lot of different areas. Not only are we aligned with our long-term goals, because our rental properties are all long-term plays. Currently, we don't take any money off the table. It gets reinvested back in the business. Not only that, but our values are aligned. And that's where I went wrong with a couple of other partnerships, where if someone was just in it for the money and they wanted some control over it, those partnerships didn't work out for me. It's really important that your values align. You might think that that doesn't have anything to do with business. It's just a business relationship. This is what we do. And sometimes those can work out. But for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, it's important that your values align, especially if something does go wrong. If something goes wrong and your values are still aligned, there's a better chance that you'll get to the other side in one piece and, not get into real trouble, say with like a lawsuit or just the loss of a business partner or friend. So partnerships are very important, especially in real estate, because it takes more than one person to take a lot of these deals down. You need to vet your partners very carefully and understand what their values are, what their long-term goals are, and then go from there. All right, regret number 5 is not having really well-defined, clear goals, especially with timelines and processes attached to them. Goals are super important with any entrepreneurial endeavor or any time you want to reach a particular place that you're not at now, whether it's losing weight or an income goal or just wanting to own, say, 50 properties free and clear by the time you're 60, something like that. If you have very clear goals, then you can set up a very clear process to get to them. Now, one thing that's very important that I didn't realize at first, because at first I thought, it'd be cool to have 100 units in 10 years, which sounds great, but it's really hard to put together processes in place to get you to that point in a manner that makes sense and is not fuzzy. So in the book, Vivid Vision, the author talks about not looking at goals for more than 3 years out. That's about all our mind can kind of comprehend and think about is about 3 years. So that's the longest that we should put a goal end post at. If at 3 years, you can break that down into smaller chunks, say like 90-day little sprints, and then you can go week to week and day by day, break things down into very easy bite-sized pieces to get you to that goal. So let's just say that you don't have a deal yet. You're looking to get a deal by the end of the year. So you've still got at least 9 months at this point in 2020. What do you need to do today to get you to that point? Well, there's going to be several things, but you can kind of break that down and know what you have to do today. If you still need to educate yourself a little bit more, maybe you just need to read a couple more books on, say, small multifamily investing. So your goal today might just be to read one chapter of that book. And then once you've educated yourself, maybe you need to go talk to some lenders. So one of your daily goals might just be to talk to one lender, see what their terms are, see what they're looking for, see what kind of loan programs they have. And then it might be to talk to a realtor. You explain your criteria and you start to get to know the market. And after that, then maybe you're analyzing one deal a day that the realtor sends to you so you can get to know what the numbers are and what it's going to look like when you eventually do purchase a property. Anyway, I just wish I would have been much more clear with my goals from the beginning. I think I'd be farther ahead if I was more clear. All right, and now it's time for the bonus regret. My biggest regret in real estate investing is not starting sooner. I could have started so much sooner in my real estate journey. I started when I was 36. I really could have started any time before that, but I just didn't take the steps I needed to get to that point to really jump off and take some action. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't taken action on a deal yet, to not overthink it too much. Yes, it is important to educate yourself, but I think that once you get a simple education in real estate investing, you get to know some of the terminology and how real estate works. I think it's really time at that point to jump in. Now, I don't think you should necessarily jump in with both feet and just not knowing anything. I think it's really helpful, especially on your first deal or two, to go at it with a partner or a mentor or a coach. Have someone help you with the deal. Maybe you know someone at your real estate investment group. And even if you have to pay someone to help you, it's well worth it because they're going to see a lot of things that you don't see and they're going to help you learn through the process, but you're going to learn so much more from actually doing. You learn so much more from doing than just, exploring ideas, say through a book or a video like this. So I encourage you to go out and do things instead. If I would have done things sooner, I'd be easily $100,000 richer, if not more, especially for the long term. If I would have invested in a couple more properties, we've accumulated 28 properties in the last less than 4 years. If the 3 years before that, when I was just being an agent, if I'd invested in, say even 5 properties during that time, what would my return have been long term? So don't let it pass you by. Get started as soon as you can. And if you need any help, reach out to me. I am happy to help you. So thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Later.